Hi, we're Ronald and Andrea, and we're on a motorcycle tour around the world with two Husqvarnas 701. Currently we are here in Chile and we want to give you a review after 40,000 kilometers on the bike. We did some feedback, or we did a 20,000 kilometers review in the previous video, I linked to here. And in another video we showed you 60 modifications we made to the bike before we started the trip. I link as well to this video. So we could make the review very short. We are extremely happy with the bike. The biggest advantage is it's very light. It's just 172 kilos with empty tanks. And if the tank is full, we can ride roughly 650 kilometers. This is a very good endurance. If you ride in countries like Patagonia, where from one fuel station to the other fuel stations are long distances. So I could stop the review here because thumbs up for the bike, no technical issues, very light and a very good engine with a long duration. But we have of course more to share with you. We made further modifications to the bike we want to present as well in this video. The first modification we did is we replaced the former headlamps to LED headlamps. These are LED headlamps from company Hella. It was relatively difficult to mount or to assemble the headlamps to the tower. I had to make brackets by myself. It was not an easy task, but it's working very well. And the light itself is much better than the usually H4 lights. So this was a very good idea to replace the normal headlamps to LED headlamps. And by the way, they have much less power consumption as the usually H4 lamps. A further modification we made to the bike, we built an adjustable side stand, and I attached to this video as well the video we did before, just detailing a little bit what we did to the side stand. The problem is here, if the bike is unloaded, the rear wheel or the whole body goes up and the side stand needs to be longer. And if the bike is fully loaded, the body or the suspension goes down and the side stand needs to be shorter to avoid that the bike falls over. Further modifications we did to avoid overheating. Problems with engines are, if they are overheated, it could be a high risk that you damage a lot of parts inside the engine. And while we are riding in hot weather conditions like today, we have 30-35 degrees. Sometimes we are riding in high altitude, 3,000, 4,000 meters, where is the air density much less than on sea level. That means less air density or high altitude also reduces the cooling effect for the engine. So we did some changes to prevent an overheating. The first what we did is, but this is not prevent overheating, this is just another technical failure if it appears. We installed a manual switch to operate the fan. This is done because we have here a thermostat on the radiator. If the thermostat fails, the fan will not work. And if it fails, we can at least operate the fan here by using this switch. The second thing what was done to the bike, but it was not done by ourselves or myself, it was done by company Breuer, the company who also did the setup for our bike, is we had a stronger water pump in the bike. It's from the racing market. We also have a larger fan and we have an organic coolant from company Motul. And to monitor the engine or the oil temperature, we installed from company Berotec the so-called Kumpan. The Kumpan shows you the oil temperature, the ambient temperature, the revolution and the gear as a side effect. For me, it was important to monitor the engine or the oil temperature to avoid overheating. So this all together, so the water pump, the larger fan, the coolant and the monitoring system, this allows us now to check that we are not going to damage the engine. By the way, this is an interesting mathematical side effect. The engine or the oil temperature is always 65 degrees Celsius higher than the ambient temperature. So if we ride with 35 Celsius, like we have now, the engine temperature will be 100 degrees. And the funny effect when we rode in Patagonia with a lot of head and tail and side wind, you can immediately see that the wind comes from in just watching the oil temperature. The oil temperature changes within a minute if you have tailwind or headwind. It's a very interesting effect to see. We did further modifications to the bike, especially to the engine or to the gearbox. There was a problem with the Husqvarna 701, and I guess it's also similar to the KTM 690. When you shift gear from second to third to fourth, sometimes you are in a neutral position. That means the gear is not properly engaging. Yeah? There is in the spare part market is a so-called locking lever with a stronger spring. We, or company Breuer, attached this to our engine, and now the likelihood that you run into this neutral situation is, the likelihood almost disappeared. So we're not running the situation if you shift levers, you're suddenly in a neutral. Yeah. So this is done or gone. Secondly, we also installed stronger springs in the clutch to avoid, if the clutch is a little bit wearing down, we have still a stronger clamping force by the springs. And I also installed on my bike a shorter clutch lever, because if you operate the clutch with 2 fingers or maybe 3 fingers, I'm not squeezing my own fingers with a longer lever, which was happened before with the original one. This is a shorter one, but this is also from Magura or from KTM Husqvarna. Andrea had still the old lever, I have a shorter one, but I'm very happy with the shorter lever. Last but not least, thanks to Bernhard, we replaced the paper air filter by a foam filter. I can show you. Maybe you hardly can see it. It's a foam filter which is covered with oil, and here we have a cover with holes in it which allows the engine to much better breathe. And I just have a gut feeling that we have roughly 5% more power on the engine. Or if we ride as before, we have less fuel consumption. Yeah, and we have been able to ride the bike with 3.2 liters fuel consumption on 100 kilometers unloaded, since we have this new filter in. Main advantage is we do not need to carry paper filters with us as spare parts when we do maintenance or inspection. We just clean the foam filter and soak it in fresh oil, and then we go again. So it also has a very nice sound. Disadvantage is the engine is a little bit louder, of course. So that's all for the modifications. I try to write down in the video description a little bit more details of the modification we did, as we did in the other video before. And thanks a lot for watching our video.